Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for our Student Ambassador Q&A panel. This is our second session of our 2022 Virtual Open House Week, and I'm so excited to see some familiar faces and names out there that I saw on my screen yesterday during our welcome and chat with Dean Eva Abramovsky. If you were unable to join us for that session, it was recorded. It will be posted probably next week on our website. There were some really great questions being asked, and I highly encourage you to take some time to take a look over that. So today, we are going to give you all an opportunity to ask some of our current students your burning questions. We have 5 student ambassadors with us today. Our Student Ambassador program is a really great opportunity for current students to share their love, knowledge, and experiences at the UB School of Law by helping out the admissions team. There we go. With a various number of events, when we're in person, they'll help us give tours, and they also have their profiles posted to our website with their contact information. So any students can, find somebody who is interested in the same topics that they're interested in and reach out, and they're there to answer any of your questions. It's also the only extracurricular activities that our 1Ls, who we call our first year students, can partake in. Because that first year, we really encourage you to focus solely on your academics, but that is one of the ways that you can get involved in your first year. With that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this and give it over to our student ambassadors to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start and go through how I see you on my screen. So Julia, if you want to go ahead first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Moranti. I am a 2L, which means that I'm in my second year of law school. I went to Geneseo for my undergrad, where I studied English and biology, and I'm from Rochester originally. And then I moved here to Buffalo to go to school. I chose UB because it is extremely cost efficient for the opportunities that it presents you, from the extracurriculars to the faculty to the externships and internships. There's so much that it offers for honestly a really unbeatable price, and I wanted to be close to home but not too close. So that's why I chose UB. And at UB, I am on 2 law review journals. I'm on Moot Court, and I work for the Baldy Center for Law and Social Policy. So I'm involved in a lot, extracurricular wise, which is super exciting if anyone has any questions about those. And I'm really happy that you're all here today.
Thank you, Julia. Moody, if you want to go next.
Thank you very much. Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Osemu Diamen, but I go by Moody. I'm a 2L. I'm on the 2-year JD program. I did undergrad in Nigeria. I studied English and literature in Nigeria, and then I moved to the United Kingdom, where I studied law at the University of Surrey. After I finished from the University of Surrey, I moved to the University of California in Davis, where I did a master's. And then I came back to law school, UB School of Law. Currently at law school, I serve as a student attorney at the Criminal Justice Advocacy Clinic. I also currently serve as the Chief Justice of the Thurgood Marshall Moot Court competition. I'm very happy to be here this afternoon. Please feel free to ask your questions. I'll try my best to give my best answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Evan.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me? Okay, I fixed all my issues. So my name's Evan Gestwick. I'm a 3L. I'm going into my last semester of law school. I've done 2 semesters in the entrepreneurship law clinic, which has been great. Now I'm working at Hurwitz and Fine, which is where I'm going to start my career once I graduate. I'm a student ambassador and also a peer-to-peer advocate.
Thank you. Paige.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paige Roseman. I am a JD MBA student, so a second year in the law school. I went to undergrad at UB and studied business and psychology. And currently, I'm a legal intern at Univera Healthcare, so getting some experience in-house. And I just started an internship at the Buffalo Public Schools Office of General Counsel.
Thank you. And then Nikki.
Hi, I'm Nikki. I am also a 2L. So I went to Wilkes University, which is a tiny little school in Pennsylvania for undergrad, and I studied environmental engineering. Same to Julia, I came here because honestly, for what it costs and the opportunities it can get you, especially being in Buffalo, there's a lot of connections you can make. It's honestly the best bang for its buck. So UB is great in that way. I want to do environmental law, so I'm doing the environmental concentration. And then this coming semester, I'm going to be in the environmental advocacy clinic. I'm also on the Buffalo Law Review, and also kind of like Julia, I work partially for the Baldy Center, working on a conference that's going to be held this summer.
Great, thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to questions, whether you want to unmute yourself or put any questions in the chat. I know we have one, so I guess I will start there. How did you choose which aspect of law you'll pursue? There's a lot of aspects that seem interesting.
I can start. I pursued law school because I already knew what I wanted to do. So that might be a little bit different. But I studied human resources in my undergrad, so I knew I wanted to do labor and employment. So I pursued the JD MBA because I want to study labor and employment with the mindset that I would be open-minded while I was in law school, that other things could spark my interest. And I mentioned the Buffalo Public Schools, so public education, school law has also become an interest of mine. And turns out that a lot of law firms join those two practice areas in their firms. So having both of those experiences will be beneficial. But that was just that was my interest. So that's the type of law that I wanted to pursue.
Yeah, I can go next. I'm going into insurance law. And I didn't know what insurance law was until I took the class at UB. And it actually turned out that the professor for the class is a partner at the firm I work at now. And I liked the class so much that I approached him and said, hey, I'm really liking the class. I want to come work for your firm. And he said, okay. So he set me up with an interview, and one thing led to another. Now I'm starting my whole career here. So that's one way to do it.
Moody, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, I just wanted to add that it's okay not to know what aspect of law you would like to specialize in when you apply to law school. It's very okay. And it's very common, I have had an opportunity to interact with a couple of 1Ls, and I asked them, do you know what area of law you want to do? And they're like, I don't really know. So it's okay, very okay not to know what you want to specialize in. However, when you get to your second year, where you get to start picking your classes, that might be a way to find out your interest. You take different classes, and then if you see that a particular class, sticks out to you, you love it, that might be an indication that maybe you have an aptitude for that area of law, So I just wanted to, add that it's okay not to know what you want to specialize in. Law school is 3 years, for some people, 2 years. That's a long time to figure out what you're interested in.
To add to what Moody is saying, I think there's a large misconception about law school that when you get there, you start specializing in a certain area of law, but just strategically, that's not exactly how it works. Your very first year of law school, everyone takes the same classes, no matter what law school you're in. If you're here, if you're at Yale, if you're at Thomas Cooley, no matter where you are taking the same, basically, 8 to 10 courses throughout your entire year. That covers all the basic areas of law. And then your second year, you're able to start choosing different classes. And that's when you can start kind of picking areas you want to specialize in if you want to. But then again, you don't. I'm kind of all over the map. I started taking family law, realized I didn't really love it. I'm kind of going into business, corporate law now. So there's a bunch of areas to play with. And that's what school is for, is kind of to figure that out. I think it's kind of difficult if you do go in knowing what you want, because then you might feel kind of like trapped almost, and you might not be able to experience all the different kinds of law that there is to offer, because there's truly so much that, you know, a lot of people don't even know exist. So definitely keep an open mind, take a bunch of classes. The clinics, I cannot speak highly enough about. That is a really great opportunity to do your second or third year. So that's something to delve into when exploring different areas of law as well.
Thank you. I have another question in here. What do you like most about attending UB?
I can start with this one. I personally, what I like attending UB most about is that the faculty and staff are actually really, really good at UB. Like every time I've struggled in a class, I've had no issue getting a hold of a professor, like them helping me through. You're going to have TAs. The TAs are always great to help you through things. But beyond that, like I've had personal things that have happened, family things that have happened that, you know, I was like, oh my God, this is going to ruin my entire law school career. This is insane. And the staff was just incredible at like helping me figure out how I can deal with everything. And just everybody that I've had to work with at UB is just incredible.
I would just emphasize that. I mean, just to give like a couple examples, in my first year, our property professor, well, one of our property professors who I had was Professor Rebecca French, and she gives out her cell phone number, and she'll meet with you at any time for however long you need to understand it. And she has no problem you texting her questions. She'll hop on a Zoom at any time on the weekend or whatever. She just genuinely cares about all of her students and wants you to do well in the class. So that's just one more extreme example, but everyone at UB is really helpful. She's just even more willing to go out of her way. And then I had a professor last semester in a second year class, and she was very similar, responded really quickly to emails, was willing to meet with you or jump on a call right away, evening, weekend, just to make sure that all of your questions were answered. So.
To add to that, I think it's also a matter of like how decorated a lot of our faculty is. Like, I honestly think it's an honor to learn from a lot of the professors that I've had the privilege to be in their class. I've had professors that have argued in front of the Supreme Court, professors that have, that were best friends with Scalia or RBG, professors that have the most comprehensive analysis that is referenced in different law review journals. Like, seriously, they are just so decorated, and it's kind of like starstruck to learn from them in like a weird nerdy way, but the faculty is phenomenal. And something new to add too, I love Buffalo. I don't know if you guys are from Buffalo, if you visited. I grew up in Rochester, as I said, and I never really came to Buffalo, just a couple times, even though it was an hour away from me. And the city is just so lively, so friendly. There's so much to do here. So just like geographically, I love this area so much. So I think that that's a really huge pull about UB as well, is where it's located.
For me, something that I really like, about UB Law School is the Career Services Office. They do a very good job at making sure that you get the right internship, during your summer, your summers, while at law school, and also that you get something, really good, get a good job after graduation. They organize programs, they organize seminars, and they keep sending you emails, just to make sure you're on top of things. And it really gives me this feeling, that they are concerned about, our practical learning, and also that, we are able to make good use of our credentials, after we graduate, by getting, hooked up with a good job and stuff like that. So that's something I really, really like about UB Law School, the Career Services Office. They do a good job at what they do.
Thank you. This next question kind of ties into that, but I want to open it up in case anyone wants to add anything additional. What are the relationships between professor and law student? when a student is struggling? How does a professor provide resources to their students? Anyone wants to touch any more on it?
I mean, the professors for the first year classes have fellows or teaching assistants, or the same thing. So aside from just having the professor, you also have students who've already taken the course to get their advice on how to study or ask questions. So if for any reason you're hesitant or nervous to go directly to the professor, you can go to them as a student as well, which they might be able to provide better advice for study tips and things like that. So those are just other resources. I think the professors do a really good job of making themselves available. And then just like having those additional 2 or 3 students who've already taken it to be able to help you.
Yeah, something I found is that office hours are widely available, especially for 1L classes, because like Paige just said, there'll be at least 1, if not 2 or 3 fellows for each class, and each fellow has office hours, and the professor themselves has office hours too, and they're all at different times. So like if one person's office hours doesn't work for you, you have plenty of other options to pick from that will work with your personal schedule.
Thank you. This is directed towards Paige specifically. There were 2 questions about this. I know you answered one of them, but if you just wanted to go through how the JD MBA program works, and someone asked if it is manageable. It was also asked, how do you find it? And if you want me to touch on that, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways to do the dual program. So don't think that like if it's something you're considering, you don't need to apply to both at the same time. However, that is how I did it because I knew going in that that was the program I wanted. So I started with the MBA. You do your first year of the MBA, no law classes. Then you jump over to the law school, you do your first year of law school with no MBA classes. So this is in my 3rd year of the 4-year program. I'm taking both. And next year will be the same thing. And then you graduate with both at the same time. You can start with the law school and then in your 2nd year, move over to the MBA. And then year 3 and 4 are both classes. Or you can do 2 years of law school and then towards the end, finish off with your MBA. So there's plenty of time to decide. So don't feel that rushed if you're considering the dual program. That's just the way that I did it. Is it manageable? Yes. So your first year of the MBA, there's no law, so you don't worry about it. And then your first year of law school, you don't enroll in any MBA. You're like not even affiliated with the School of Management at UB for that year. So the first year of each program, which are the most difficult of each program and the most time consuming, you're not worrying about the other program that you're in. So now this year, I'm in both. So you can either take an extra class during the semester. You can take an extra class over the summer. We also have what's called bridge classes, which are 4 weeks in the winter session. So during our 6-week break, you'll have a class and you can do that to make up the credits as well. So there's lots of options to fit both of them in. I think it's highly manageable. Essentially what happens is the MBA program is 2 years. But when you do the dual program, instead of 60 credits, it's 48 for the MBA. So you're taking less MBA classes than you would had you done it alone, which is how it ends up working out as the dual program, because some of your law classes will count essentially both, or some of your MBA classes will count over for the law school. So that's how the program works. I think it's highly manageable. I think it also depends on what you want to do. So like I said, I want to do labor and employment. So having my clients being on the management side of things, I wanted to be able to better understand their business, to better help them. So I think it depends on the type of law that you might be considering as well. So that's kind of how the program works in a gist. I definitely think it's worth it. But again, depending on your interests, and you have plenty of time to decide.
Thank you for diving into that. We have many different dual degree options for you. You do apply to each program individually. So when you're actually applying, you have to pay attention to the different requirements for the law school and then whichever other school you're applying to within UB. And they're all listed on our website to dive a little bit more into that. Our next question, what would you advise prospective students to do with their upcoming spring or summer to prepare for starting 1L in the fall?
Yeah, honestly, there's not much you can do like academic wise to prepare for it. The biggest thing I would say is honestly just relax and, you know, develop some like healthy habits to get into first, like an actual routine and whatnot. Yeah, that's really all I can say.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Like, honestly, my biggest advice before you start is just have fun, because like it's very overwhelming once you start. And if you make your summer also overwhelming, you're gonna burn out. So if you can have fun, and also like I 100% agree, get a routine, get structure, because that's something I didn't do. I moved to Buffalo like right before we started, and trying to catch up life-wise and school-wise was really hard. So if you can kind of get your life in a way that like you're, you know, it's structured and you feel good about it before you start, that really makes a difference.
Yeah, I completely agree with relaxing because burnout is very real, and burnout is not like a term, you know, to just like throw around. Like that's like a real medical thing. Like burnout is like a scientific concept that you get extremely tired and exhausted and irritable. You know, it's real. And I experienced that so intensely in my first year. You know, law school was designed in the 1800s to be a full-time job. That's why they don't let you work more than 20 hours a week. In case you didn't know that, there's like a contract that you sign from the ABA, the American Bar Association, before you start law school. And it says that you cannot work more than 20 hours a week during law school. And they do that as a safety mechanism because law school is comprehensive, it's voluminous, and they want to limit how much you're working outside of it, because law school is designed to be a full-time job. So before you start law school, have fun, relax, you know, wind down. They recommend there's like books you can read before you go to law school. I bought them and never read a single one. You don't need to read them. They're not that good. They're just these kind of random suggested readings. So don't waste your money on them like I did. There is something called a Jump Start program that some students are required to do. Other students can opt in. And it's like a 2-week program, I think, right before classes begin, just to get you acclimated to study habits, you know, seeing the school and things alike. It's either optional or mandatory depending on, I think, your grade point average or something along those lines. So you could do that to prepare, unless you have to do it. But otherwise, I would just relax because burnout happens. So, you know, take care of yourselves as much as you can while you have the time.
Just to add to what my friend Julia said, I would recommend, I would suggest, you know, that before law school starts, something you can do is try to start networking with people, you know, members of faculty in the school, your colleagues, you know, try to start making friends with them. You know, don't worry about like getting your law school books and begin to start reading before school starts in the fall. I wouldn't suggest that. I wouldn't recommend that, you know. So like you heard, so you don't get burnt out, you know. But start networking, start building, start developing the structure upon which your success in law school is going to be founded. Things like effective study habits, know what study style works for you, time management, how to manage, develop those things, you know, prior to law school. Don't worry about like the substantive content of law school. You do all that stuff. You have enough of it when law school starts, you know, so build the structure upon which your success is going to be founded, you know, when you start law school, and I think you'll be fine.
Thank you so much. That Jumpstart program, so it is a 2-week program, and it is required for some as mandatory through their admission, but then it also once we get there, we allow students to opt in, and it kind of eases that transition for some students, maybe to get into the mindset of law school a little earlier and do things like they said, start thinking about time management. It's only, 2 weeks beforehand, so it's not, that whole summer. So you do have some time to do those other things like relax. Another question, clearly you all did very well in the application process to be here today. However, do you have any advice looking back on something you wish you would have known or done differently while applying to UB?
I think the only thing I would just make note of, the sooner you apply, the more scholarship opportunities are available. So how it works is there's like a pool of money for the scholarships. So the later you apply, the less money is in the pool. So obviously UB is already a very affordable law school, but why not give yourself the opportunity to make it even more affordable for you? So I would just, I guess, make you aware that the sooner you apply, the possibly better chance you have of getting a larger scholarship amount because of how the pool works. That would be my only tip.
Something I'll add is feel free to ask, and this is what I mean. Ask. I remember when I was applying, I was given a particular amount of scholarship, and I thought it wasn't enough. And I asked. I went back to the school, and I was like, "Can you give me more?" And they gave me more. When I started the application process, there was a fee, I think, to turn in an application, and I wanted it to be waived for me. And I asked, I told them, "Can you waive the fee for me?" And they were like, "Yes, we'll waive the fee for you." They did it. So feel free to ask throughout the process. Don't close yourself off by not asking. When you ask, the worst that can happen is you get a no if the school can do it for you. But don't take away the opportunity to get a yes if they would have said a yes if you asked. So please feel free to ask. And, like a popular book says, ask and you shall receive, so ask. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, reach out to your admissions team. We love to hear from you. We are here to answer your questions. We just posted a blog on how to negotiate your law school scholarship. So you can read through that. We're open about it. We give you tips, tricks, and how to handle that situation. And that was just posted to our blog last week, I believe. Is housing affordable at UB or near the area? I'm not sure if anyone has, been on campus, off campus housing in the area. We have housing.
I'm off campus. I was so you can live on campus, and then there's kind of like a section right outside of North Campus that is still affiliated with UB, but it's technically off campus, but it's kind of like a glorified dorm situation. I lived there my first year. I didn't really love it that much, so then I ended up moving a little bit further away from the school. And now I'm about 10 minutes north in an area called Kenmore, or not north of the school. It's actually south of the school, I guess. But it's a really nice area. I think it's affordable here. I've never had any issues there. My loans are currently covering that, but it was not like a jolting realization for the rent. I thought it was very it made sense. It was reasonable to me. So it's not like you're moving to Chicago or New York City and your rent's going to be like thousands of dollars. That's not the case. So definitely look around at what fits your budget, looking for roommates, living alone, depending on the area. The prices fluctuate. So definitely just do some research there. I used, I think, Facebook Marketplace, Zillow, Trulia, just different sites like that to see what the market was once I decided that I didn't want to be, on campus anymore. So definitely just check out those options.
Yeah, so there are many different housing options in the area, whether that's on campus or off campus. We're kind of a college town. UB has 3 campuses. So in between campuses, you'll find, fairly endless housing opportunities with a various price range. On campus, there's a village called Flint Village, and they actually designate a house for law students. So if you want to kind of stay in a law school related area with other students that you might be familiar with. That's an option for you. We also create a Facebook page where you can, meet other classmates very early on. So if you wanted to start thinking about roommates and getting to know, other students, you can do that fairly early on. All right.
Can I just add something really quick? I was gonna say, so UB also has, well, it's probably not owned by UB, but there is a Facebook page for UB. It's called like UB Roommates, Sublets, and something else. And my first house I found on there, and I found that to be, because like I tried to use like a lot of other things and it just got really confusing, but I used that and it helped a lot. So if you guys can find that page, I highly recommend, because then you can meet other, like I ended up rooming with non-law students, but they were still UB students. So, and they were graduate students. So it worked. It might be another place for you to look.
Great. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So there are so many different options to find housing in the area. Okay, so moving on, we talked a little bit about studying, but what does your specific study schedule look like?
I can start. Sorry, the sun is like moving in front of my window. I keep tilting. Okay, so I think it's very individual to you. I just want to remind everyone, you have been successful in the past. That's why you're applying to law school. You know what study tips work for you. There might be some things that change a little bit given the greater difficulty of law school, but in general, the way you studied before, the way you've been successful in the past will work for you the same. It's just new content. So for me, I found it most useful to try and do most of my work over the weekend, so that I wasn't like getting behind during the week. So, I mean, you have like 3 law classes. So our first semester was civil procedure, contract law, and tort law, and then your writing class. So I budgeted those to do my readings over the weekend and like maybe a little bit on Monday. So all my reading was done over like a 3-4 day span. So I wasn't reading every single time like the night before, just to give yourself that extra time. And then during the week, I used that time to work on my writing class. That schedule was actually recommended to me by upperclassmen when I was a first year, and it worked really well for me. And I still continued to do that in my second year. But again,
yeah,
what works for you?
Yeah, I do exactly what Paige does. In your first year, you're not going to have classes on Fridays either. So you'll have a 3-day weekend every weekend. And I read Friday, Saturday, and a little bit on Sunday. I try to take some of Sunday as like a mental health day, which I recommend that everyone does. Doesn't have to be Sunday, just one day, one full day every week. And then you have the actual week to go to class, obviously. And then this is going to be premature, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's a concept called outlining, which you will talk about later on. But I outline when we finish a topic in a class, and I use the week for that as well.
I agree with what Paige and Evan just echoed, that you can't, I think the worst thing you can do is compare yourself to someone else in terms of how they study, because that is the most like overwhelming conversation ever to have with someone. And so many times I've had that conversation and have insanely regretted it. Because you're going to hear about this person who studies 24/7 and slept in the library, and you're going to think less of yourself because they did that, which, one, who knows if they even did do that, and 2, what works for you won't work for someone else, and vice versa. So as Paige said, whatever works for you before, in high school, in college, however you've been studying, how your brain works, continue that method, just at a different magnitude now. So for me, flashcards have worked ever since I've studied biology in high school. So I use flashcards, my outlines, which outline is just a fancy word for a study guide. My study guides, I do a certain way. I'm very visual. I draw things out. Like, that's all me. But other people have totally different methods that work for them. And similar to Paige, I also would try to bang out as much work as I could before the week, because your classes your first year are pretty long. I think they're like 90 minutes, if not more, actually. So they're long classes. It's kind of an endurance game there. So getting as much done as you can the weekend before. So then during the week, you're just kind of reviewing. I like to outline right after class. So it's like right in my head. Outline as soon as you get out of class, review for the night, prepare for the next day. And then as Evan said, you don't have classes on Fridays. So Thursday, as soon as my last class was done, I was checked out. Thursday night was for me. I would go out with friends, stay in, relax. And then come Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would time manage my readings for the next week, trying to make that easier on myself. So continually looking ahead in your syllabi so you know what's coming up, and how to organize that is definitely the biggest advice I can give.
I'll just add something to what Julia said. Something I would suggest is that you make very, very good use of your Fridays. You're most likely not going to have anything going on Friday. So when I was a 1L, we had classes from Mondays till Thursdays. On Fridays, nothing. It's easy for that Friday to be wasted. Please make use of your Fridays. Don't waste your Friday. That's the day you don't have classes, and then Saturday and Sunday, make use of your Fridays and your weekends. Do it very well. And another thing I'm going to add is consistency. I think consistency, is something that would really help. It's not a quantum of what you do at once, but how consistent you are. At studying, and working hard throughout the semester. Some people, they might work very hard the first 2 or 3 weeks or 1 month of the semester, and then midway they slack off, and then at the end of the semester they want to get back at it. It might become very difficult. Make sure you are consistent. You might not be studying a ton of hours, but if you're consistent, at the little you do and you do it regularly, you do it consistently, I think you'll be fine. So make good use of your Fridays and be consistent.
Yeah, I'll add to what Moody's saying. Actually, let me stop my video because I keep lagging a little bit. But I'll add that because again, it's all about what works for you. And I worked on Fridays, my 1L year, but I didn't do the whole reading every weekend, get everything ahead. I tried to read at least a day or two ahead, no matter what. But I found if I read everything, because I did try that, do all your reading over the weekend, I would feel myself getting very overwhelmed. So it really is this learning process of what works for you. And what Moody was saying, absolutely stay consistent. Because I think that once you have, it's going to take time before you have that structure and that pattern down. And also remember, we are 2Ls and 3Ls. So these are things that we have been working on. I mean, it took our entire 1L year mostly to get these patterns down. So don't expect when you first start that oh, I'm going to have this structure and this pattern and it's going to work for me and it's going to be great. You have to kind of let things do what they do, because, it takes time to get used to it. But yeah, definitely consistency, and definitely don't be too hard on yourself. If you want to get all your reading done and you don't get it all done, just try to time manage better the next weekend. Don't let that affect your entire week. Don't let that mentally affect how you're doing that week. Be another big piece of advice I would give.
Thank you. All right, we have a lot of questions. Let me find my spot. What is something you wish you knew before going to law school?
I'm sorry, Nikki, you can go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I wish that it's hard. I wish that I knew that even if because when you come in law school, everything feels very intense. And I wish that I knew that it doesn't matter if you mess up every once in a while. It doesn't matter, mistakes are gonna happen. And I think that's super important. And I wish I had known that coming in, that you're not gonna do probably well on your first writing assignment. You're just not, most people don't do well. And you're gonna fall behind on reading. You're gonna do this. Mistakes are gonna happen. And, you know, we're all, if you're in law school, chances are you do have a background of like pretty good academic record. So you come in and you might have certain expectations, but you have to be easy on yourself, because if you're not, like, law school is very academically hard, but mentally can be very, very tough. So you have to be able to be willing to make mistakes. And I think I wish I had known that before that first semester, because I think I would have been a lot less miserable. So
Yeah, going off of what Nikki said, I feel like it also goes back to Nikki's previous comment about kind of like this learning curve that you are figuring out how you study and the best way to study in law school. And I think this is like a really hard and a really good question, you know, that this prospective student asked, because I feel like there's nothing that I could have known that would have helped me almost, because you just kind of figure it out as you go along, if that makes sense. And that's not supposed to be like, you know, this hopeless answer back to this question, but it's almost supposed to be like more hopeful that no one knows what's going on. Like, no one knows how to study yet until you're there. No one knows what this professor expects from you until you continually take this class. No one knows how long this reading is going to take you until you've done it a couple times and you get faster and faster. So I feel like there is no good answer to this question, because you know, you figure it out as you go along. I think Nikki's point about making mistakes is huge. That's something that I still grapple with. You know, and I'm over halfway done with law school. I hate making mistakes. I hate not checking things off my list. You know, I hate messing up a cold call. I still hate all those things. But, you know, being a perfectionist is definitely a downfall in law school. So that's something that I'm actively working on to become better at that. But I'm almost 2 years into law school and I still haven't figured it out. So it definitely takes a lot of time, a lot of reflection, and a lot of mental work to make peace with the fact that law school is hard, and that's okay, but you're here for a reason. Like, you deserved to be here.
Something I would like to, you know, add to what my colleagues have said is this. So before I started law school, you know, for some reason I thought law school had to do with like a lot of talking. Like, if you can talk very well, you know, if you talk, you know how to talk very well, you know, you will thrive. You know, that's what I thought. That was just all that was on my mind. You know, for some reason, I didn't think about it this way. That it also has to do with a lot of writing, you know, and writing very well. You know, so when I came to law school, it kind of like swept me off my feet, you know, when I saw that actually, you know, this thing is more of, you know, thinking really critically, thinking deep, you know, and being able to, you know, convert your thoughts, you know, your critical thinking into words and put up a very good, you know, written piece, you know. So when I came to law school, I was like, whoa, you know, this thing doesn't really have to do with much talking, because I remember back then, you know, you know, where I grew up, you know, if you talk a lot or you enjoy talking, you know, people will be like, oh, go be a lawyer, you know, go be an attorney, you know. But when I came to law school, I was like, well, this thing is different, you know. This thing has to do with, you know, you got to be a little quiet, you know, if you're going to do this thing very well, you know. I said that because sometimes it's very difficult to, you know, think critically and be talking at the same time. So it's, for me, I think it has to be, a huge part of it has to do with thinking, you know, and writing, you know, and not much of, you know, like talking, you know. So if you're the kind that you're not comfortable with, you know, talking, don't be like, oh, law school is not for me, I don't like talking, you know. And also too, if you're the type that, you know, you like talking, you enjoy talking, don't become so confident and be like, oh, law school is for me because I like talking a lot. No, keep in mind, you know, that it has to do with a lot of critical thinking, and it has to do with a lot of good writing.
Thank you so much. All right. Is there opportunities for internships and externships during fall and spring semesters? If so, how do you manage the time commitment along with classes during the semesters?
I can start this one because I'm actually starting an externship next week, which I'm very excited about, with Judge Sinatra in the 4th Department. And there's different externship opportunities between judicial externships. You can also work for different firms during the year as well. for externship credit. So that basically means that, you know, you're going somewhere else to do work, but you're getting credits for it. You're not getting paid. You can also work during a firm during the year and get monetary compensation for it, but that wouldn't be an externship per se. The externship is when you get credit for it. So the way that you balance it is that it's seen as a class. So there's a bunch of, you know, paperwork and waivers and all of that kind of red tape to cut through, just as there is with kind of any type of program in that way, but it counts as a class. So next semester, you know, next week, I'll be doing an externship downtown where 2 days a week, I'll be going to the judges' chambers and, you know, researching, reading, writing, going to court. And I clock my hours with him. So it's a 3-credit class, which is basically a bar class almost that you would take in law school. And it is, I think, 130 hours that I need to do over the course of a semester, which is equivalent to any other class I would take. So that's how it's manageable, that it's just added into my course load. So that's why it's a really great way to balance different opportunities. If you want to work with a judge, work for an attorney, you can apply. It's a very easy application process for waivers for it to count as a course. And then it's just added into your schedule, which is really awesome.
I'll just add quickly onto that. I did one last semester at Kaleida Health. So yeah, you just clock your hours. There's small weekly assignments to submit for the class credit. A lot of them will also earn you pro bono credit, which you need to sit for the bar exam. Yeah, I thought it was highly manageable. It essentially just replaces a class in your schedule. But I've also worked for an internship on top of my course load. So I did like 8-ish hours at Kaleida every week, 9 maybe. And then I worked 10 hours for Univera. So I'm still under the 20-hour requirement, but they were both at the same time. So it's definitely manageable. I think it's something that you get better at with time management. You learn more, you get more comfortable with law school, you get faster in your reading and studying because you're more familiar. Second year is definitely different than first year. So I wouldn't have done both of those things in my first year, just because of the time constraint. And then I saw the question about whether they're virtual or you drive to them. It depends on what you apply to. Kaleida, I worked virtual for half a day and I worked in the office for 1 day. That's just how we agreed to arrange that. But it depends on what you apply to.
Yeah, going off of that, I worked during my first semester and at Wegmans, and that was a mistake because my schedule was not set. Like I would just give them my availability and they would put me on the schedule whenever. So if you have to work your first semester, I would highly recommend getting some sort of a job that will give you a set schedule so that you can build the structure around that, because nothing is more important your first semester than structure. In my second semester, I worked for a firm and had a set schedule, and I found that to be a lot more manageable.
I think the last question that was just typed in kind of relates to this, so I don't know if it makes sense to jump to it, but they post all the internship positions. There's a deadline and UB coordinates it with all these externship placements. There are so many placement opportunities. There may even be more than there are students in the law school. Finding an externship or an internship or participating in a clinic, the School of Law itself does a lot of work to make sure that everyone gets experience while they're here. They'll email you if they see that you haven't had an experience yet to see how they can help you, to let you know what positions are still open. I guarantee you before you leave, you will have plenty of experience to add to your resume.
Wait, Woody, go ahead.
Yeah, also something I'm going to add to with regards to getting an internship networking. I can't overemphasize the importance of networking. Talk with people, attend events, put yourself out there, and that's how to get something. So for my last summer internship, I actually got it through one of my professors, actually my professor for my writing class, because I had, talked with her, I told her I was looking for an internship, and stuff like that. She came across an opportunity and she sent me an email and was like, hey, Moody, I think this is going to be a good fit for you, and I applied and I got in. So talk with people, talk with your friends, at a previous school I attended UC Davis before coming to University of Buffalo School of Law. I got an internship at that school through a friend, through a classmate. I was talking to a classmate, and she was like, oh, Moody, I heard about this opportunity, and I applied, for it and I got it. So you don't like underestimate, any person or any avenue or chance at getting an internship. Talk to people, ask, like I said, and you'll find.
I was muted.
Rachel, you're muted.
Thank you. I know we're nearing the end and we have a lot of questions. For questions that are, revolved around housing or scholarships, the admissions office is happy to help out with either of those. Our JD information session will cover a lot of that as well. So I'm going to keep working down the line here. How comparative are law school classes to your undergrad courses? What are those differences?
0. So it's called the Socratic method, which you can Google to find more about. But basically, you're expected to have done the reading before you've gone to class, and it's more of a discussion format than a straight lecture. So that's definitely the biggest difference, and I think my colleagues will agree with me. And not every professor does this, but there's a concept called cold calling, where instead of asking a question generally, and then someone raises their hand and then you answer, they'll say your name, and then you have to answer. And I'm not trying to scare you; I'm just trying to prepare you for when that happens. And again, not every professor does that, but there are a few. And yes, they do cold call your first year. That's one way. And the other way is it's not all, black and white like a lot of undergrad classes are. In undergrad classes, you learn just facts, and but law is more about the application. But that's more just how law school is different generally, not necessarily about the classes themselves.
I think also a big difference between the undergrad and law school classes is just kind of like the level and the nature of the work. Like in undergrad, you might have like more quizzes or little assignments, whereas in law school, most of your homework is reading. That was the entirety, of my assignments, besides maybe like really baby stuff here and there. But otherwise, your homework is to read pages, 1 to 30, 30 to 60. And you just kind of keep going with that. So it's more so like you have to keep yourself accountable, whereas professors in college might give you little quizzes to check in here and there. In law school, that hasn't really been my experience. It's more so like you read, you keep up with the reading, you review the readings in class, you outline the readings, you study the readings, and you're tested on the readings. So you are keeping yourself accountable there, as opposed to an undergrad where professors might give you different types or varieties of assignments. That hasn't been my experience here, at least. It's more so just reading and keeping yourself accountable there.
Yeah, I'll actually add something. Okay. So actually I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about if you're struggling. I think that's another thing, because like I was in a relatively small undergrad, so like my classes were pretty small, and you have quizzes and stuff like that, and your professors are kind of checking in to see where you're at. Law school, I feel like if you're struggling, the only person that really knows is you. So you are much more in charge of reaching out for help. You are like, if you're struggling, like you need to reach out to the TAs, you need to go to office hours. Like nobody's gonna come and tell you like, oh, maybe you should go to office hours. Like, you need to be very in charge, very accountable, like Julia was saying, for like keeping up with the work and like making sure you're understanding material. And I think that was a big change for me personally.
I would like to say something, about cold calling, yes. So for some of your classes, you would have professors that would, come to the class, start calling out on people, like, hey, answer the question, Moody, answer, they'll ask a question, and, and so the reason I talk about it right now is to avoid something I would regard right now as a mistake, which I made, in my 1L, and a class I took last semester. I actually had a professor, that would call on people in class to answer questions. This is what I'll tell you. Do not put pressure on yourself. The essence of cold calling is not to embarrass you, is not to make you look stupid, is not to, make you feel bad about yourself. It's just to make you, get comfortable, with being able to answer a question or, think on your feet, and it's okay, totally fine, not to be able to provide a good answer to a question, right? It's completely fine. And that's the purpose of being in the class. The professor is there to put you through, the TAs are there to assist you and to guide you and to route you in the right direction. For me, for some of those classes, what my experience was that I became so focused on answering the question right. And, when I sit in class, I'm like, are they going to call on me next? And if they call on me next, am I going to be able to answer the question? And when I'm doing that, I'm not able of, taking some of the things, the professor is teaching, is passing across to us, because I'm just so focused on, am I going to be the next person that's going to be called, and am I going to answer it correctly? So don't put yourself under that pressure. Prepare for your class, prepare very well for your class. And when you get there, if you're called on and you don't have a good answer to the question, it is what it is, let your professor know, this is what I think the answer is, or I don't have an answer to this question, and move on. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't let, the fear, the scare associated with cold calling deprive you from learning, interfere with your learning. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to try to squeeze one more question in. Maybe if just one ambassador wants to jump in on this. How much time do you spend per week on campus outside of class? Are you typically studying in a library? Are there study groups? How do you go about that?
I can answer. I kind of just did in the chat a little bit because I saw that question. Again, just like studying tips, it's totally dependent on you. How long you take to read depends on how long you take to read. So the type of notes you take, so I take handwritten notes. So obviously writing handwritten notes takes longer than typing. So if someone types their notes versus me writing my notes, that's a time difference. Don't worry about how long it takes you versus how long it takes someone else. It's not a race. It's dependent on what you need to do to learn best for you. So I honestly don't know. I didn't track my time. I just did what I needed to do to get my things done. There are study groups that people just form naturally from being in class or from seeing each other in the library or sitting near each other in class or what have you. Our situation for us 2Ls here was a little different because we started law school virtually. So that was a little bit different for us. I work better independently. I know that about myself already. I'm a distraction to others. I'm too chatty to work in study groups. So I know it's best for me and other people to work individually. And if I have questions, I just like going directly to the professor. But there are people who enjoy working in study groups. And if you're one of those people, then by all means, join a study group. But again, just like our study tips, it's dependent on how you learn best and do what works best for you. It's not a competition. It's not a race. So that's my advice on that.
Thank you, Paige. I know some of our ambassadors hopped in the chat and started answering questions in there, so I really appreciate that. I know we had so many amazing questions, and I really appreciate you having all of them and adding to this conversation. If there were any questions that are outstanding, please feel free to reach out. Our ambassadors' emails are on the website. My email, Kristen, our assistant director who is on this call, her email's out there. So please feel free to reach out with any questions that we did not get to. I just want to thank our panelists for taking time out of their day to join us and offer this great perspective to our prospective students. Coming up this week, so tomorrow I am presenting our JD information session and application tips webinar tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully I will see some of you there. And then on Thursday, Kristen's going to wrap us up with our alumni panel. So again, bring your questions to that. Maybe, if they weren't answered here, maybe our alumni can jump in on that. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic Tuesday, and I'll see you later this week. Bye, everybody.